make it as pastry so they can get out of the kitchen.
How are the roadies?
Is that long? I don't know. Let me get in first. Okay, put that down, then I'll sit.
Right? I don't know how we're going to get out.
Well,
Okay, is there spots for you guys at the table?
Take out your hearing aids.
That is not our intention at all. Lex,
You're gonna move it?
get up here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Get her.
Thank goodness.
why don't you just sit on the end? This is my dad.
Yeah.
And that's my mom.
Okay, you can sit there. Yeah.
Were you?
Bob and Mary.
Then at least you're my mom.
Bob would
It's getting a little toasty in here. We did the same Whatever it is. They're from She's one of the kids. Can you grab a rag or something in there?
Eventually what's going to happen. Thank you.
I worked in
Good chance if you're on
Can I get that back? Thank you
Sure,
so
I'll
much.
take it.
Yeah.
Did your mom spill that or did you?
She spilled it when I wasn't looking.
I think it was mom that spilled it.
December 1951.
One of the first ones that walked up.
You gave my life to me, set me free, set me free. The finest years I ever knew, for all the years I had with you, and I would give anything running home. You know my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything. You're loving them so, but taking them all for granted. You may lose them one day, someone takes them away, and they don't hear the words you want to say. I would give anything I own for you, but my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything I own just to have you back again, just to touch you once again.
Well, welcome everybody. It's good to see all of us here gathered today to celebrate Blaine's life and remember all the great things and times that we had together. I should start by introducing myself. My name is Cyril Sweetland. I grew up here in Velva, North Dakota. Some of you might know my mom, the one with the camera right over here, Iris Sweetland. So the family asked me to say just a little bit about Blane. But I think, let me first explain my connection to the Keller family. You see, I grew up on that block. My babysitter lived just down the street. I spent those first years of my life cruising up and down on my banana seat bike, taking in everything that neighborhood had to offer. I rode that street more times than I could count. And back in my days, I'm old enough now to say that, right? The Keller house looked very different than it does now. It's a plain set of steps in the front. I remember in the backyard there was a swing set and huge tractor tire filled with sand. And in that sandbox, well, that's when I first met Ross. I remember going to the backyard there and thinking he had this giant pail full of Matchbox toys. And I thought, man, either this kid is rich or his parents love him way more than mine. So fast forward to grade school, and I'm not sure how this happens, but Blane ends up being our Cub Scout leader. He and my dad, they would take on and entertain 20 second grade kids in the break room at Verendrya Electric. It was just chaos, right? I mean, you can imagine. I mean, there's no place to move. We're all running around. And I asked Donna, I said, well, how did you get roped into that? And she just says, he was crazy. I don't know. Apparently we had a reputation for being tough on teachers, but looking back at that now with my adult eyes, I have to say he's just really earned a special place in heaven for having to deal with all of us. I don't know if I should share this. The chaos of that whole event was such that every night after we had a scout meeting, my dad would stop at the DJ liquor store right in the corner there at 52, and I'd run in because there were popsicles there. You could get a sucker at the counter, right, for any kid who came in. My dad, of course, he'd buy something a little stiffer, and I'm not sure if that's how it worked for Blane when he got home, but my guess it was pretty similar. So. In my life, Blane was just the guy who was my good friend's dad. And I don't think any of us really pay attention to our friends' parents, especially in those teenager years. But I just remember Blane and Donna disciplining Ross when we or he or us ever gotten in trouble. But I don't know why, but I never got grounded near as much as Ross did back in those days. For Blane and Donna, their start in this life was really a definition of young love. Before they could be ready for this world, they were thrust into a lifelong bond as parents. And while their beginning may have felt unconventional, it really ended up creating this amazing family and friend circle that we see here today. I would say, talking with all of these folks, Blane had this love of his Donna. There was nothing else. His kids were telling me this story that I just had to share. Apparently, early in their relationship, Blane and Donna were out water skiing. And Donna wiped out, right? So she's on the skis and she falls, and apparently it's fairly tragic. And without any hesitation, Blane jumps in, ready to rescue her, except for one problem. Blane doesn't know how to swim. As Donna tells the story, yeah, I had to recover from the wipeout and then drag him back to the boat, right? Well, Blane loved his Donna. Blane loved his grandkids, and absolutely, to no question, Blane loved Facebook Marketplace. I mean, his kids were in there too, don't get me wrong, it's close, but I understand that when he got that smartphone and figured out how Marketplace works, and things were never quite the same. He was a gatherer, a fixer. I like to think of Blane kind of as the MacGyver of First Street here in Belleville. And he made everything work. And if it didn't work, folks, he had a backup. And if the backup didn't work, he had a backup of the backup. And the backup didn't work, he had a backup of the backup of the backup. Ross was telling me that he was raised in a vintage that you fix it before you replace. And Ross was telling me that he spent a day tinkering with something before he'd spend $10 to replace it. His favorite time of the year, it happened every Monday night before garbage pickup on Tuesday. He'd cruise the streets in a Suburban looking for stuff. And I just want to see by a raise of hands, I know some of the people in the room here, how many of you experienced Blane pulling over to check out a box, a cardboard box laying the dicks, thinking there might be something good in it? Let's see it right here. He was known for pulling over to the side of the road and when he'd see something interesting on the side in the ditch. And when I was a high school kid, I worked washing trucks and sweeping the floors at Verendry Electric. And one day he pulled in, and he was so excited. I'd never seen this guy so ecstatic. He found this pile of glass bottles that were buried in the dirt when they were digging this pool. And I have to believe, like in Blaine's eyes, those glass bottles shine like rubies and gemstones. And I know he said this. I bet some of these are worth something. Donna, did he ever say that in that time? Yeah, she's shaking her head. Like she's heard that statement in those 50 years together with him. Blane seems to be the guy who was always surrounded by people. And it's hard to know if those were the people he needed or the people who needed him. Over the 4th of July, the Kellers host this gathering in their front yard. And this last year, my family joined them. Everyone's there. And during the gathering, I walked into the Keller house, and really, remember, I grew up with Ross, and remember the house as a kid. But walking in there with my adult eyes was a completely different experience. It looked and felt different. The kitchen and the living room were moved around. Instead of the basement painted floors with kind of crusty old carpet in the corners, it was new. The garage, folks, is nicer than my living room. I know the fence outside, the addition, the front, the back, and it seems like this house has changed. Not just changed, but it's transformed. Like Blane, inside and out, it's different than when he began this world. Bigger, more spacious, imperfect, but not tired, not worn out. Blane cared for that home like he cared for us, working to make it bigger for his family to gather. More convenient for his Donna to get around, a better kitchen for food to be made and people to gather. Even the garage, folks. It's no longer a place to store a car, but a sanctuary for his treasures he gathered. And I bet some of those things are worth something. I think about as we leave today, I challenge you all to be a little bit like Blane. Rescue something broken or abandoned. If you see a box in the ditch, stop and see if there's something good. Do something to make this world a little better for your neighbors, your friends, and your family. Or do something crazy, but please draw the line at being a Cub Scout leader for 20 little kids. With that, I think I turn it over to, who's next on the agenda? I think Dan. Is Dan? Dan's way in the back. There we go. He's going to grab a cocktail, I understand, so that makes sense. The family kept telling me over and over, this is a celebration, and so
It's lemonade.
as much as we want to be sad, I think it's fun to share these stories and be together. And remember, Blane wants us to put the fun back in funerals. So with that, Dan, you're up.
Well, I certainly can't top that, and I'm pretty sure I won't top what's coming after me. I'm Dan Craig, obviously. I don't know, this is a little tough for me. I think there's a lot more firemen sitting out here that could tell you a heck of a lot more stories, both funny, good, bad, and interesting. So I'm just going to give you the few that I tried to shortly put together. I didn't want to be like the, all day long kind of guy. I didn't look at you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to look at you and say that. I didn't mean to look at you and say that. You're a very good speaker, and I just about didn't want to come up after you were done. So the thing with Blane is, I don't know much about Blane from work. Brenda Electric. The thing I noticed about Blane, and I only saw him in the morning or in the evening. It seemed to me every time I saw him, he was either sitting in a truck or leaning against one. So I assumed he went to school, worked his way up to crew boss, and that's what they do. They tell others what to do. Now, I'm not making fun of him because it's going to make sense here in a minute. But I was making fun of him. He had the biggest Mountain Dew cup I ever saw in my life. As a firefighter, he was here long before me, but I remember the old days before we had the fire hall we have now. I remember sitting on the tailboard of the old trucks in the old city hall, and there was something about him. He was just, he was a man's man. I mean, he was a manly man. He was a very nice man, but he had a brute look to him. Like he could grab you and you'd know he grabbed you. And, the other things I noticed about him is he's the only guy I know that could stand in front of you and complain about something, but he had a smile on his face. Like it didn't matter. He could tell you the worst thing just happened and it wrecked his Suburban or whatever it was, but he had a smile on his face. I'm like, what are you smiling for? Well, he's probably got 3 more in the back, like you said. Just pull some parts off the other one. And oddly enough, I just bought an old Suburban the day after Blane bought one. Weird. I didn't know he bought one. I just happened to be in the market for one. So apparently I'm going to try to take over for him and buy in Suburbans. I'm going to get a little choke here, but so when I came, there was a pretty tight group of firefighters in this town. There was a circle, and I came as a rookie or a probie, and I was a rookie and a probie for a long time before anybody else joined. When you're a rookie, you get treated pretty rough. Some of you fellas in the back can attest to that, so I'm not just blaming Blane. Some of you were worse than him. But the thing about it is, when somebody new finally did come along, I got a little bit closer into that group. And the thing I'm going to say about Blane, and I've said it before to some of the past chiefs' own faces, and I think they respect what I have to say. He was truly my favorite chief for a couple of reasons. One, the rest of you were good chiefs, but you didn't quite have what Blane had. You made chief, you did a great job at chief as much as you could, but you also tried to be a firefighter. Blane did not do that. Blane treated chief just like he did his job. He ran the scene, he watched over his firefighters, he made sure you were safe, he made sure you were doing what you were supposed to do, and if you didn't know how to do something, he taught you how to do it. He didn't necessarily scold you. He just came up behind you and showed you how to do it, and then he went to the next thing. But he did not jump on the hose and take over and say, well, you just stand here like an idiot. He didn't take your job. He wasn't a firefighter. He was a true chief. He stood back and ran the scene. I admired that about him. The other, I guess, closeness I have to Blane is I lost my father young, and Blane reminded me a lot of my dad, especially the junk collecting. We had a 3-story house next door to our house, and my dad had, I think, close to 500 suitcases from the 50s. They were all packed full of junk, but they all had numbers on them, and they all had a room. And every month we went to the flea market with a different set of suitcases so people would see new stuff. This was my dad's big grand scheme on how to make money. And if sales weren't going well, him and another guy across the way that was just like Blane, they would start arguing to each other real loud to get people to come to their tables. They were true salesmen, and like you were saying, everything my dad looked at was, oh God, that's got to be worth money. If I just clean that up, or if I have 3 of them, somebody's going to want one. That kind of thing. Sorry, I'm moving along here. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. On another note, I call Blane my friend, and it's not like I spent days with him, but anytime I ever spent around him, I felt like the day was better. If I was in the dumps, like I said, he could complain and have a smile on his face. I never understood that. But it was infectious. It made you think, hey, maybe my day's not so bad. Because he just said what happened to him, and I don't think mine was that bad, so I'm not even going to bother and tell him what my problem is. I'm just going to move on. Sorry. So, I'm just going to tell you one little funny story, and there's some fellas in the back that were heavily involved in this, but since we're on Blane, I'm going to put it on Blane. Back in the old days, we used to play cards, and again, I was that young rookie at the time, and there was probably some alcohol involved in this, and I felt like the table was not treating me right, so I offered anybody at the table that was willing to go out back, let's go out back and let's teach some lessons. Blane was sitting right next to me. And again, like my father, Blane had that Popeye stature, that stout, solid. I'm not talking fat. I'm talking this boy's going to hurt you if he really puts his hands on you. And when I said, I'll take any one of you out back right now and let's find out who's the winner. And Blane looked at me with this shit-eating grin on his face. And he said, well, let's go. And he stood up. I sat further down in my chair and commenced to lose a few more quarters. I did want to reference something. I just got to find my place here. I'm sorry. In the fireman's prayer, there's a reference to those that have left us after many years of service and sacrifice. St. Florian just received another captain to his brigade of those that watch over us still on the fire line. That's the way I see it. I know he'll be watching down on us, most likely laughing, but proud of the crew that he helped shape, because I can tell you, he had a huge part. So did some of the older guys in the back here. He had a huge part in shaping me as a firefighter, in teaching me how to deal with adversity. And maybe that comes from that junk collecting. You know, when we got into extrication, the way he looked at things wasn't what's going on here in the accident, it was what's the mechanism. Just like when you say he takes something apart and fix it. That's the same thing in extrication. You look at how to get that car apart. That's how he saw it. He didn't look at the damage of the car. He looked at, well, how do we open it up? You know, and I got that in my brain, and I excelled at extrication. I'm not bragging by any means. I'm saying I learned it from him to analyze what are you looking at, not what is the big picture. Your job is just here. And for that, I thank him, and I'm proud that I was able to share time with him on the fire department. I know, since I wasn't here as long as some of the fellows sitting in the back, I hope you come up later and tell some more funny stories, some more good stories. But I can tell you, Blane gave me a kick in the ass when I needed it, and he gave me a pat on the back when I deserved it. And for that, I thank him. I don't know who's next.
I'm Tim Crumwoody. I work for Brand New Electric. Not sure I got roped into this, but we live in a world here. First off, delivered chairs down here this morning. I'm walking in wearing my bibs. About down to tears, so I'm wearing them again. The good ones, though. I do have better things at home. But, I guess, it's tough following the other two guys that were up here. I've worked with Blane for 17 years. 2 years as a supervisor. knew Blane for many years before I started at Granbury. First off, yes, I want to thank the family for letting us have him for 40 years. I'm not like the other two guys, I didn't prepare anything, so I'm just rolling with it here. Read the lineman's prayer. That is the way that Granbury, I should say that Blane led his career at Granbury. Teaching all the young folk how to do the job. Making good linemen out of them to make sure that everybody did come home safely from their job. I mean, it is can be a very dangerous career. But yeah, he started in '79 with Granbury. In July of '79, he enrolled in the apprentice program. Graduated with his journeyman certificate in 1983 as the apprentice of the lineman, apprentice of the year award at NDAREC. Very prestigious award. He's one of 61 since he started that. You know, yeah. Guess I'm at a loss. And I do have a building full of stuff that is worth something too. And a house, and yeah. I guess I don't know what more to say other than thank you guys. We're gonna miss him. Rest in peace, Blane. Thank you.
think now is the time where we get to tell our own stories about Blane. So the family has asked if anybody wants to tell their stories about Blane. Come on up and share them right now.
Blane and I worked together for 25 years. Or at least he said he worked, I was just there. He said to that, excuse me, John and I gotta be brother and sister, because he said, you're both so goddamn stubborn, bullheaded. Blane, he always used to take care of our house when we were gone. Watch things, and all he ever requested was I keep the fridge full of beer when we left. And one time we were working in a substation, hot day, hanging up terminators for underground going out, and it was close, we couldn't wear a belt or anything, so we just had our pants, we'd stick wrenches in the pockets and stuff, and he's up there on the ladder, and the priest would come over and say, oh shit, I look here, his pants fell down. So, I could go on, but I can't.
I'm just gonna miss him so much. I don't think I'm ever gonna go over to that shop again. I just can't. He'd stop in for beer, and him and I would drink our Kamado beer together and drink the Eat Party mix. God, I'm gonna miss that so much.
You know, you used to look and see that there was nothing floating in them tomatoes. Some of it got old. Then he requests a new bottle.
Here, Connie's got some.
Connie got something to share too.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to get through this.
This is our daughter, Connie.
Yeah, I'm Connie. Soderholm, Crumweedy Soderholm. So Blane was just always around. I just grew up with him, and he was close with our family, of course, because he and Dad are best friends. And so when it came, when John and I were getting married, I wanted him to be an usher for a wedding, and he said he would. And one of the jobs that I asked him to do was, to take care of the music, because we had one song that wasn't a live song. It was on at that time, it was on probably a cassette, because it's been a while. And anyway, it was I Cross My Heart, George Strait song. And I remember Blane being so nervous about this job. He was just like sweating, and he was just stewing over it. And I couldn't figure out why he was so nervous about it. And then he later confided in us that if he didn't get it exactly right, the song that just came right after it was something like "I'm Gonna Have Your Baby" or something, and he wanted to make sure that was not played in the church. So, so many good memories with Blane. I didn't ever see the brute part of him. I always thought of him as just being the friendly face that always, "Hi, Connie." He would always greet me with that big shit-eating grin, and just being just a constant, a good friend to my dad. So. I needed that.
If coming way up here feels like too much to just feel the need to stand up where you're at and belt out a story, we'd love to hear it.
I everybody. I'm Malia, and my grandpa always took me for four-wheelers, and he always laughed, and he always got to see us when we ate supper, and we always had to get to go to the shop and eat some zebra donuts. And me and Lydia always had fun on the four-wheelers. And he always got to have us with us at Auntie and Michael's house. And he always gave us presents. And I always gave him presents. He was a great grandpa, and he also gave us some rides, and we also once we went to Grandma's house. We went to see the kittens with Grandma, Donna, and Auntie and Mike always let me go to Grandma's and Grandpa's to see Grandpa, and we always gotta give him a big hug. And we always loved him when we gave him a big hug. And then we always asked him on TV if we could watch Transylvania. And we always got to play cards with Old Maid and, what's that game again, Grandma? In the left, right, center. And I always got his money. Because he lost.
Do you want to follow that, Mike?
I think pretty much everybody around here knows who I am. Fire chief, fire department. Yeah, he's right. He shaped many of us. Department. We got a call one night, and I still remember it. The pager went off, we got to the hall, and I said to Blane, what should we take, just a grass unit? He's like, no, take them all. It was a dumpster fire behind the drugstore. I'm looking for this big structure fire that he thought he heard on the pager. And it was dumpster, not structure. So I kind of picked on him about that for years, but no, he's definitely shaped me and my career up there, and I know a number of other members, you know, it's going to be tough. You know, greatly miss him. Miss this. The rub of the chin. Yep, that's going to work. Or it was the rub of the chin. Nope, and here's why. Two things I always got from him. He was always there to support everybody and teach. He's going to be greatly missed. Thank you.
I would imagine most of you here know who I am. For those who don't, I'm Derek. I was kind of his bonus grandchild that he never really asked for. As Hallie says, I'm unbiological. I just wanted to say that Papa was probably the greatest person I think any of us have ever met. He was there for everything in my life. I remember I did a brief stint to work at Brendery, and Papa called me on my first day after orientation. He asked where I was going to work, asked if I was coming to Belleville, and I said, no, I'm going to Minot. He just said, oh, good luck. Called, asked how my first day of work was. As most of you know, I do concrete now, and
I remember the first time I ever did concrete was helping BK and Papa pour the driveway at Granny and Papa's house. There was never any problem too big or small that you couldn't call Papa for. It's going to be hard for anybody to ever fill the shoes that he had. It didn't matter what you were doing, you could always call him, you could always fix it. He is going to be very missed, and I cannot wait to tell my daughter all the stories about the Papa that I wish she was able to get to meet. And thank you all very much for coming and being here. I think I speak for everybody in the family that it means a lot to see all of you here and celebrating his life. So I just wanted to say how much he's going to be missed, and he was the best person I've ever met.
Might have to bear with me a little. I had the double pleasure of knowing Blane. Blane was a classmate of mine. I look out, I see a couple other classmates. Keller, who's a great friend of Blane. Him and Blane hung around together. So I got to be a classmate of his and a brother-in-law, which was great. Double bonus, you know. You could count on Blane for anything. Out at the farm, we milk cows. We needed something done electrically. I wasn't very inclined in that. Call Blane up. He'd come out and fix it for us. Hunting. Blane loved hunting. He was the greatest hunter in the world. We never had to walk back to a vehicle. Blane said, "I'll drop you off, I'll pick you up." He didn't like walking much, but he loved hunting. And that's what we loved about Blane. We always had a ride back. He was kind, helpful, he'd help anybody. And I'm going to miss him dearly. Great family member. Very great family member. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
I've only known Blane for about 13 years, but it was a real good 13 years. It's fitting for me to say a few words in honor of Blane at the very end of this, for it was he who gave me the nickname Blister. Shows up when the work's done. Blane most definitely played a big role in my life these past 13 years. He taught me things I never thought I'd need to know. During hunting, he found me the best standing still deer. He didn't care how many of his shells I went through. He kept us up and running with our concrete business and made sure we stayed hydrated, coming in with the usual, yeah? He let me use a whole stall at the shop for my thrift adventure, and we made a few deals. I mean, he didn't have a yellow pressure washer yet. scripture that reminds me of Blane says, "Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others." Philippians 2:4. And that's what Blane did. As a lineman, he kept the lights on, and as a human, he was a light in the world. With his sense of humor, his brains, and good looks, he had it all. Blane was selfless, modest, and worked hard for everything he had. A helper and a fixer of the community. Even in his last days, he was most concerned for others, mostly his mama. His perseverance, devotion, and dedication was admirable. His family, work, his acts of service, and the missions of many mattered to him. His troubleshooting skills and his innovative mindset went hand in hand, for the most part. He was our Google and our eBay. He didn't think so highly of himself. He acted like an average guy, I think. For average, we have some pretty big shoes to fill. The thing is, we know he was exceptional. Always going above and beyond. From day-to-day things to dreams we didn't even know we had, he made them come true. There were a few unpleasant challenges and some injuries that helped troubles along the way. But Blane was resilient and never focused much on the negative, just kept moving forward. His shoulders and knees really took the brunt of the hard work through the years, but even in pain, he conquered task after task. There will never be a way to thank Blane in the way he deserves. He was a really good guy and a great role model. In honoring him and his memory, maybe we could all try to be a little more like him. The way he exercised his heart muscles through all the forms of service he provided. It's no surprise to me that his heart was the strongest part of him to his last breath. Now Blane is in God's hands and in our hearts forever. And may that give us strength moving forward, for there is work to be done. We've got it from here, Blane. I hope heaven is amazing. No doubt you made it. Love, Blister.
We'll have a final song, followed by the last call, and then there'll be some fruit for us to eat.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late.
Velva Fire, this is State Radio. We have received the sad news that firefighter Blane Keller has made their final call. It is with the heaviest of hearts that we acknowledge the passing of one of our own. Blane served the community with bravery, dedication, and unwavering commitment to helping others for 38 years. His service will never be forgotten. As of 3:56, Blane Keller is officially 10-7, end of watch. Rest in peace, Blane. Our thoughts and prayers are with your family, friends, and fellow firefighters. State Radio to firefighter Blane Keller, your watch has ended. You will be missed, but never forgotten. 10:42, end of watch.
On behalf of the Keller family and all that are here, thank you so much for being here today. This concludes our service. Tables will be dismissed, and please stay with us for some fellowship and food.
Cold on it, kind of warm on there. Should take a nap.
Well, hey, Albert told me.